and they've tinkered. But now there's no more time for that, because today the drivers, the navigators and the teams once again have to prove themselves all over again. So let the action begin. Sarel, we're coming off a very exciting 2001 season. I think by any measure it was fun, it was good for the spectators. There were lots of teams challenging, lots of drivers challenging. What are we going to be looking for 2002?
I think it's probably going to carry on where it left off last year. You know, Johnny Gemmell was probably the find of the season last year. He's now moved himself into a position where we're not going to think of him winning N4 anymore. He's challenging for the lead. He's won 2 rallies. So a bit more pressure for him. Serge was very quick last year. You know, at the beginning of the year they had some preparation problems, I think, and then towards the end he sort of tossed it a few times himself, especially in the last rally. And then, of course, there's the Volkswagen team. Habig is king. Everybody's going to chase him. That's the target. Enzo has got to shape this year. You know, he's been around long enough. He's always been quick. A lot of it has been expected of him. And this is a make or break year for him, really. If he doesn't come to grips with it or win a couple of rallies, then maybe he'll have to rethink his whole career. I'm
quite confident, you know. I actually needed a development year. You know, I was out of the sport for 2-3 years, and in those few years the sport moved up at least 2 notches, and I was driving buckies at 80 k's an hour. So yeah, I needed the year, and I think towards the end of the year it showed I was more comfortable running at the pace, and you know, we had a lot of non-finishes with the engine, which was demoralizing. But we're more confident this year, and I think those problems have been sorted.
You've got a brand new car. Any changes to last year?
A little bit lighter, not a lot faster, but we've progressed in the sense of finding traction towards the end of last year, which I think we'll put to good use now.
Now, in terms of the cars, who's done what? Who's upgraded their cars? Who's changed perhaps to a newer vehicle?
I think everybody's probably done some things to their car. I know the Volkswagens have lost a bit of weight. The Polos have got sequential gearboxes, which is going to make it better for them. Johnny Gemmell has upgraded his car a bit to the latest spec. And Toyota's done something, you know. So everybody's done something. They're not saying a hell of a lot about what they've exactly done, obviously. But I think the cars will be a bit quicker than last year. And that just makes for more exciting rallying.
Looking at Johnny Gemmell, who, as you said, was the find of last season, he came from nowhere, he made a big impact. Is there anyone that you can tip this season as doing a Johnny Gemmell?
At this point in time, not really, but then we would have said the same thing last year at this time. And certainly I think, you know, he's now elevated himself right out of the newcomer class. He's challenging for the lead, and he's one of the big names. And that's going to be exciting, especially for the guys in the two-wheel drive cars, because it was a learning year for him last year, and now he's gotten to grips with the car. And I think on quite a few rallies he could be setting the pace. So it's going to be a chase situation for the big names, for the Habigs and the Damsus and the Kins. And if he can handle the pressure that's all of a sudden thrown on top of him, I think it's going to be a fantastic year. You're changing your role this year. From last year was the best newcomer. All of a sudden now you find yourself at the lead, and you're going to compete for the lead all the time, which might put a bit of pressure on you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think so. You know, we had a lot of pressure on us last year, being our first year in this car. But I've got confidence in the car now. I've got a good navigator, and I think we'll do well.
You've got any good navigator? Have you done any testing together or not?
Yes, 2 weeks ago, Robert stays in Natal. He flew up to Joburg for a regional event, and we won it quite easily with an old car. So, no, we got on well together.
Now, even amongst the established teams, we have seen some name changes, particularly among the navigators, where it looks like a case of musical chairs.
You always have the silly season towards the end of the year. I think Johnny's got a very good navigator with him, with Paisley. Enzo has made quite a dramatic change with Pierre Aries, who's been around in the Cape especially for quite some time. Also a young guy that's now moved into a top team, which is nice. Serge and Guy, probably the oldest two, you know, combined ages. They're probably touching 100 or very close to it. Maybe even over 100 at this point in time. So that's experience as against youth and new combinations. Chart, Cindy Harding retired last year, so Chart's got a new navigator. So, yes, there's going to be some getting used to the navigators. I mean, you got to get used to a guy's style of navigating, as the navigators got to get used to a guy's style of driving. And some guys want it a bit earlier, some guys a bit later. So the first few stages probably feel each other out. But you haven't got too much time to do that kind of thing because the rally might run away from you. Charles, a new navigator after many, many years with Cindy Harding. Have you done any testing together?
We had 2 cups of tea together so far. So it's like a blind date. I mean, when the lights goes off, we'll have to see what happens. I'm confident that Mike got the ability. It's just a matter of we must gel together and get our act together, that's all.
It does take a bit of time, though, to get used to another navigator style of navigating, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously. I think that we will take maybe the whole day today to settle in, I would think. But, I mean, that's part of it. There was no opportunity for us to go out together beforehand, so we must take today and sort out.
Let's just take a look into the background. We've been off for, 4 months, I guess. What has been happening behind the scenes?
Volkswagen built a lot of new cars. I know the 2 cars of Hobbick and King brand new. There's some new players in the field. And a lot of those cars have moved down to privateers, so it's helped the L rally scene in the sense that there's more cars available and the top cars have gotten better. Now, the same would have been, Toyota didn't build new cars, but the cars would have been stripped to the bare chassis and a few changes here and there, a few improvements here and there. And I think everybody has more or less done the same thing. A guy like Johnny Gemmell probably upgraded his car to the latest World Championship spec Subaru. So there's always enough things to do, but not enough time to do it in. And I bet they were all still working until yesterday.
We're seeing, I think it's 3 development teams this year. Is that indicative of the changing face of South African rally?
I think it's only natural, that guys would be interested in motorsport. There's a lot of publicity in motorsport. There's a lot of TV time given to motorsport. So it's only natural that guys would like to get into the sport, and it's actually nice to see that. Because what also happens that gives motorsport a chance to have competitors from communities previously not involved, and that brings more, different kinds of sponsors, different kind of public viewing and all the rest of it. So, yes, it's only good for the sport. I mean, any sport who's not involved in that kind of thing is probably just going to die out anyway.
Here are the top 10 starters as the rally crews prepare to leave from the Gateway Shopping Centre in Umhlanga Rocks. A8, N4 and so on are designations denoting the classes in which the cars compete. A8 entries are 2-wheel drive, N4 are 4-wheel drive.
So you're starting number 1, which is not necessarily a good thing on a wet rally.
Yeah, it's always a problem in number 1 in this type of event where there's a bit of wet and slippery. So we just have to be a bit more careful and attack it as it comes.
The car, any changes?
The car's very nice. It's well prepared and it's nicely put together, and very happy with the car so far.
Competition?
Well, I'm sure Yanni and Inza is going to be the biggest competition this year, and of course you can't forget Johnny Gemmell, which he did quite well last year with the car.
And at your age, you desperately want to win and have another championship, eh?
For sure, and so far I'm still competitive, so we'll keep on going.
Toyota's Damso had a poor 2001. By contrast, Volkswagen's Jannie Habich enjoyed a championship-winning season.
Jannie, you've come off a very good season, which means everybody's going to be out to get you.
Yeah, we can't go anywhere besides stay where we are or maybe down, and going down is not an option. So I think from that point of view, keeping our position is going to be a tough year. There's quite a few guys that are eager to swap positions with us, so yeah, it's going to be tough.
You got a new car, any improvements on it?
Yeah, they've managed to reduce quite a bit of weight on the car, so obviously that's a major plus. But the rest of it is basically the same as last year.
Stage 1 was spectator-friendly and took place in the shopping centre grounds. Here, Damso and Hodgson in the Corolla put in a good time, which placed them second in the stage. Here we're in car with Kuhn and new navigator Aris in their Class A8 Golf. Although this footage looks spectacular, they weren't going as well as they would have wished. And here comes an incident which many thought may lead to exclusion from the event. As they approach the finish, they take a wrong turn, which effectively becomes a shortcut to the finish line. Would this error prove critical later?
Sorrel, here we are on stage number 2. I'm taking a look behind us over here and I'm seeing mud, glorious mud. What implications does that have for the drivers?
Very, very difficult conditions. If you look behind you here, coming down the hill, for instance, braking is a problem because it's as slippery as all hell here. And setting the car up for the corner. If you brake too late, you're going to understeer and maybe end up here somewhere. Likewise, if you set it up too early, you could end up with the backside of the car in here. And as you can see in the cane, what I said earlier, it's very difficult conditions to read here. You can never read the road for more than 100 meters in front of you if you look up the road. So it's difficult to set the car up for what you don't know around the next corner. And there's a big surprise coming around here, for instance. And then you're getting into the right-hander again. So getting out of this one is going to be difficult enough, and then setting it up for the next one. So very difficult conditions. I would think everybody would be on mud tires. Those who aren't are definitely in for a tough time. And, difficult conditions, the experienced crew should come out on top.
Perhaps one of the interesting things, though, was we actually went through part of the stage ourselves now. And I noticed that large parts of it are also dry. So even if you are on wet tyres, you haven't got a perfect situation there either.
The problem you have are the major roads are fairly dry, which means your wet weather tyres will overheat more than they should. And then coming into the mud, they're not really as effective as they would have been. And also you're going to use a lot more of the tyre. So conditions difficult, but I think throughout the rally, if it's going to be like this, wet weathers will prevail.
And the N4 guys, are they going to score well out of this?
It's difficult setting an N4 car up with a four-wheel drive. But coming at traction out of a corner like this, yes, they're going to just score immense time. So if I had a choice, I'd rather be in a four-wheel drive car.
Here we're in car with Damso and Hodgson in the two-wheel drive Class A8 Corolla. Soja's experience showing as he speeds along the narrow, muddy track with his vision limited by the high sugarcane on all sides. There's no margin for error here. Once a rally car's in the cane fields, it's almost impossible to get it out again. Now we see the Toyota speeding through the so-called flying finish and then onto the Marshall Point to clock in at the end of stage 2. Their time, a disappointing 5 minutes, 27 seconds. This is Habich and Judd in the Class A8 Sasol Golf on their way to taking 2 seconds off Damso's time in this stage. The top car team prudently kept out of the way as they kept their own tabs on the stage times. In car with the other A8 Golf driven by Enzo Kuhn. He hadn't let his troubles in stage 1 upset him and was absolutely flying. As he and Aris swept through the flying finish, they'd taken 15 seconds of Habich's time and 17 seconds off Damso. Would Gemmell and Paisley in the Class N4 Subaru Impreza fare better because of the potential advantage of four-wheel drive? Here we see Johnny working the steering wheel hard as he completes the stage in second place, 4 seconds behind Kuhn. The Class A7 cars run behind the top 4. Although inferior technically, they're still capable of winning. This is Lawrence and Vermeulen in the Team Total Toyota, followed by the polo player of Fakken and Levkovitz. On to stage 3 and in car now with the up-and-coming Fakken, who last year had a battle royal with the older polo driver and Class A7 teammate Chart van der Walt. Like A8, Class A7 cars are two-wheel drive. As the open, straight ground at the start of the stage gives way to a twisty track with limited visibility, the job of navigator Dave Levkovitz becomes more critical to Fakken. Still in stage 3, taking place on the KwaZulu-Natal north coast. More sugarcane and more muddy tracks interspersed with bits of dry, rocky surface. Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson, the pairing that Cyril believes carry 100 years of experience between them, were showing no signs of needing their walking sticks just yet. Their time of 9 minutes 38 seconds would be the second best on the stage. Habich and Judd are also highly experienced, although slightly younger than the Toyota pairing. They failed to respect their elders and beat Damso by 5 seconds. The junior team among the A8 cars is Enzo Kuhn and Pierre Aries. Kuhn has had an on-off top-flight career, while Aries has not recently navigated at this level. As for Gemmell in the Class N for Subaru, this is only his second top-flight season, although navigator Paisley has more experience. They would have been unhappy with their Stage 3 performance, which saw them finish 4th out of the top 4. Here we see Damso and Hodgson finishing Stage 3. Last year, the car was plagued by mechanical problems, which saw the Toyota pair fail to finish a number of events. They'd be fervently hoping for better luck this time round. By contrast, the Subaru was a model of mechanical reliability. Here we have an in-car view of a touch of human unreliability, however, as Gemmell and Paisley take a wrong turning, losing valuable seconds. And just behind the front runners, Lorenz and Vermeulen in the A7 Corolla were winning their battle with Fecken and Lefkowitz in the A7 Polo. In Stage 3, the Toyota pair was 5 seconds ahead. Here we're in car with Fecken as he tries unsuccessfully to better Lorenz's time. This year, technical changes to the top A7 cars have made them even more competitive against the A8 and N4 machines. As Stage 3 ended, it was time for drivers and navigators to enjoy a well-earned break, and for the service crews to take over.
Cyril, end of Stage 3 and lunchtime on the first day. Give us a synopsis of how things are looking.
Well, it's pretty much as we expected. You know, the top 4 guys are within a few seconds of each other. There's been a bit of controversy. Enzo went through bunting on the Stage 1, shortcut it a bit, so where that's going to finish, I don't know. You know, it might be a penalty, could even be exclusion. But I think it's more or less what we expected. Tyre choice obviously was very important on Stage 2. A lot of guys went on dry weather tyres, and it was very, very wet, as you saw when we drove through it. So both Serge and Yanni lost a bit of time there to the other two. But like I said, it's still within a few seconds. The Class A7 cars, very tight as well. Chart is maybe not there where he should be. He also had long tyres on Stage 2. But the dice between Ergen and Etienne Lorenz is something serious. There's only a few seconds between them two, and they're not that far behind the A8 cars either. Etienne, well, you said you were going to go this morning, and you really are.
Yeah, we still battling a little bit with the new things and the new gearbox, and then we had a linkage bolt came loose and it jammed itself in the linkage cage there. So lost a bit of time now. But yeah, it's going nice.
What happened towards the end of the stage?
We had 3 Ks to go. We had a flat and the gear stuck in second. Yeah.
To go back to the tyre situation, why would some people get it right and why would some people get it wrong?
Conditions weren't known to anybody until after the first gravel stage. Now the main roads are fairly dry. You know, they've been obviously drain a lot better than the ones in the sugarcane themselves. The problem is that they go into the sugarcane every 5 or 6 kilometers or even less than that, and they're really into the slush and grass and mud and all the rest of it. So the guys who obviously chose the wet weather tyres came off a lot better. If on the other hand the road stayed on the main roads, I think the dry weather guys would have had an advantage. So it's a bit of a wrong tyre choice in the second stage.
Yeah, well, the second stage, it was quite a wet stage, and I watched what Yanni was going to do because he's from this area, and of course it was the wrong choice. We went on dry, so anyway, so the third stage we went on wet, so we're more even, all of us.
Does it look like it's going to be wet all along now?
I think so. It's going to be quite a difficult event to decide. Whoever makes the right choice, sometime I think it's going to make quite a big position change.
I suppose the main roads are fairly dry, but once you get in the cane, it just turns to mud and slop.
Well, that's the thing is, you know, the main piece of road is really quite nice and hard. You can really get going, and you get off those, and then it's quite slippery in those.
Very tight at the top there. I mean, anybody's rally at this point in time.
Yes, I think it's going to be tight. This whole event, I think, is going to be quite tight tomorrow. You know, it's a 30k stage, and that's where I think is going to count who's going to be, you know, the tyre choices. And
where would you like to start in the morning?
Well, it depends. If you can open a nice gap and it's all right, you can go. But if you can't open a gap, and then rather start number 3.
You've been talking to a lot of the drivers about where they would like to start on day 2. And there seems to be quite a few different answers to that. Now, what's the relevance of it?
Normally, in dusty conditions, everybody wants to lead. For obvious reasons, you don't have to drive in anybody's dust. But when a rally is tricky like this one, where it's a lot of mud and unexpected slippery grass and all the rest of it, some people feel that it's nicer to have somebody ahead of them, and they can always see a car parked off the road. They know it's a danger spot. A guy like Johnny Gemmell he's not really faced where he starts. Enzo doesn't want to lead, Serge doesn't want to lead, and Habig is sort of undecided. I think it's more psychological than anything else, because you've got to traverse the road anyway. It's just that you might feel a bit safer if somebody's been through it already.
In fact, the tricky conditions delayed the event briefly when an official marshal's vehicle became stuck on a stage. Of course, a rally is not just about the frontrunners. Further down the field, Grobelaar and Van Wyk were having a reasonable run in their A7 Polo, although they would ultimately drop out after day 1. Also in an A7 Polo was rally stalwart Tony Ball, navigated here by Dean Riedlinghuis. They would eventually gain a top 10 placing. And this is the Class A6 Corolla of Craig Trott and Gerard Snyman, followed by the A7 Polo of Coleman and Koch. The Subaru contingent has grown in 2002. This is Paul Riley and Megan Stowe. The only Renault in the event, the private entry of Ferdy Kukamura and Richard Clark, unfortunately came to an untimely end early on. They were going nowhere after falling victim to the slippery conditions and burying the car in a deep ditch. Meanwhile, Kuhn and company were still waiting for the marshal's vehicle to be removed.
Know that you can start now, and that there is an obstruction.
But soon the action resumed. Damso and Hodgson in the Castrol Toyota, refreshed after the break and still without the rumoured walking sticks, headed off into stage 4. They knew a good performance was needed to make it the time on Kuhn and Gemmell. Volkswagen's Habig and Judd, the reigning South African rally champions, were in exactly the same situation. Here we're in car with the Golf pair, and as you can see, mud, glorious mud, was still the order of the day. Now watch Habig work, and you'll note that high levels of concentration and fitness are important if you're to succeed at this level. Posting a quick time through a stage is a carefully orchestrated ballet involving driver, navigator and car. Habig and Judd have a long history of top-level success together, having won the championship in 1997 and 99, as well as last year. Here, Gemmell and Paisley in the Subaru are on their way to an excellent time on the same stage. The wrong slot we saw earlier didn't affect their overall time too much or damage their confidence. Etienne Lourens in the Corolla, who is having his first season in Class A7 after being very successful in A6, was posting a stage time equal to Habig's. No mean feat. A Team Total Toyota driver who's still in Class A6 is JP Damso, son of Serge. Also regarded as a likely up-and-comer, many rally pundits feel this is the season in which he will show his true potential. Sugarcane and still more sugarcane. It's enough to cure you of ever having sugar in your coffee again. And here JP gets a bit too close to the menacing green curtain for comfort. Damso and Hooper finished second in Class A6 last season behind teammate Etienne Lawrence. Here on stage 4, they posted only the 10th fastest time, their cause not being helped by the loss of precious seconds in the foray into the sugarcane. The other Class N4 four-wheel drive car in the top 10 belongs to Western Cape-based Fernando Rueda. He was going well, as was Cliffy Blackman in the top car BMW. This is the only BMW currently competing in the National Rally Championship. The start of stage 6, and with nightfall approaching, the cars were now sporting a row of serious-looking spotlights, almost capable of turning night into day. Fortunately for the crew, the narrow tracks between the sugarcane had now given way to more open terrain, making driving and visibility easier. On this stage, Fecken put pedal to the metal, taking 28 seconds off arch rival Etienne Lawrence and even bettering Habich and Gemmel's times. The final stage of day 1 took the rally back to the Gateway Shopping Centre for a crowd-pleasing stage in the parking lot. Jannie Habich had obviously enjoyed a good day's rallying, even greeting the camera crew with a smile and a joke. And here's how things looked at the end of day 1. The two Golfs leading, but the top 4 all within touching distance of each other. In the A7 battle, just 1 second separates Fecken from Lawrence. It dawned clear and dry.
It was a fantastic day yesterday, leading the rally by quite a close margin. In fact, everybody's a close margin. It's going to be out of a day today.
No, it's not much in it, so I see it's dried up today. It's going to be a hot day, and of course different tires and different approach to the event. Running in the front has got its pros and cons. You know, I'm going to sweep the road for the rest of the guys, but I'll be driving on my own line, so it's probably a bit of help in that.
But you can expect the dice to continue all the way to the end, probably.
It'll be quite hot. I don't know what Damso did yesterday, but I think knowing him, he'll come with a late charge today.
Well, it was a fantastic drive. Keep it up.
Thank you. See you there.
Sorrel, start of day 2, we had 8 very interesting stages yesterday, some close fought rallying, and here we are starting off with a bit of controversy.
I think it was some of the most exciting rallying we've had in recent years. You know, 4 cars within 45 seconds and dicing for the lead on every stage. It was really exciting stuff. What has happened now is that Damso's picked up a penalty of 20 seconds. Now, the only way you can do that is by clocking in late. I think it might be a scoring error, because if he had clocked in late, he would obviously have dropped into somebody else's time behind him. The cars running 2 minutes apart. So whether it was in fact a navigating error or a scoring error, we'll have to find out a bit later. But he's certainly a bit upset about it this morning, as you can understand. What also transpired is on the very last stage last night, he lost 20 seconds to the rest of to the other top runners. But I think that was planned in the sense that I think he maybe drove a bit slowly in the last stage because he was leading then, and he maybe wanted to drop back a bit so he didn't have to run first on the road this morning. Whether that actually backfired into this 20-second thing is open to debate at this point in time, but they're certainly trying to clear it up as soon as possible.
And talking of time penalties, there was quite a bit of discussion yesterday as well as to whether Enzo Kuhn would actually incur a time penalty. Just to tell us a little bit about that.
What happened to Enzo was on the very first stage yesterday morning, he turned a bit short on the one corner, went through the bunting, but went on the inside of the flying finish. In other words, he didn't cross the flying finish. Now, the feeling is that there wasn't any time penalty to be given. In fact, the clerk of the course said there's no time penalty. All that could be done was the exclusion. Enzo did get a time from the marshal, though. So that is a bit of a contentious issue as well, and we might still see a protest at the end of the day.
Yesterday we had quite a bit of discussion about the weather. It was muddy, wet. Now today it looks bright clear. What are the implications?
I think with it being dry today, or not as wet, we saw it in the last few stages yesterday that the A8 cars were getting away from Gemmell a bit. You know, whereas he was winning stages earlier on in the day, he was just a few seconds behind this time. So I think the dry conditions are probably suiting the A8s. But what it's also going to do is tyre choice becomes critical again because there's some new Dunlop tyres on the market. I know Enzo has some of them. Abi didn't like them, but everybody says the tyres are quicker, so we're going to have to see this morning. But certainly I think the rally is going to speed up a bit because of the dry conditions, and it might just work against Gemmell.
At this point, are you willing to make some kind of prediction as to who's going to come out top?
I think Enzo seems to be pretty much in control of things. He was very quick yesterday. On the other hand, Abik seemed to be battling a bit, maybe overdriving a bit. In the few places we saw him, he was really trying very hard and getting very sideways, maybe losing a few seconds here and there. So I wouldn't like to guess at anything because I think Serge is also going to go very quick today. And then, of course, the Class A7 battle between Etienne Lourens and Ergen Vecken, that's something else. I mean, there's 1 second between the two after the first 8, and that's going to be a humdinger all day long. So I think we're in for a fantastic day's rallying.
After so many disappointments last year with mechanical problems, could it be that Kuhn and Aris would start 2002 with a victory in the first event? Or could it be that they'd win it and then be disqualified for that Stage 1 incident? It promised to be a dramatic day's rallying. We pick up the action again on Stage 10. Here, Habich and navigator Douglas Judd in the Gulf are a picture of concentration as they prepare to start. Would the fact that Habich lives in KwaZulu-Natal give him some kind of advantage? Perhaps he'd know the narrow canefield tracks and bush roads better than competitors from elsewhere. As you can see from the dust, the roads were much drier than the previous day. But, as many were to discover, that and the stony surface made them extremely hard on tyres. To add to the excitement, there were still patches of mud, which the sun had failed to dry out. Now we're in car again with Kuhn and Aris, who posted an excellent time on the stage of 7 minutes 10 seconds. Following on from a good Stage 9 time as well, this meant the Volkswagen pair were maintaining their good run. But Gemmell and Paisley weren't hanging around either. In Stage 9, Kuhn was only a second faster. Here in Stage 10, the Subaru crew would turn out to be 7 seconds faster than him. As for Habich, well, trouble awaited. As they waited for their Stage 10 start, Damso and Hodgson were relieved that the 20-second overnight penalty had proved to be a scoring error. The Toyota duo were back on track. Now we're back with Habich in the Class A8 Golf. Yanni's in the construction business, but here he was more intent on destroying the narrow lead being built up by Kuhn and Gemmell. Watch as he gets the two-wheel drive Golf sideways in a display of perfect car control. By contrast, the different handling characteristics and quieter turbocharged engine of the four-wheel drive Subaru make Gemmel's pace seem more leisurely. Damso also seemed to be a man on a mission. With things this close, none of the frontrunners were prepared to give an inch. It's at times like these that experience and temperament can make the difference. He who panics first is likely to make a big mistake. The Class A7 competitors were also having a major tussle. We're in car now with Etienne Lourens and Andre Vermeulen in the Corolla. Stage 10 was an 11.3-kilometre long loop situated inland from Scottsboro and Park Rennie. It would also be used later for the running of Stage 13. Although it can't be heard here, the navigator is issuing a continuous stream of instructions to the driver via an in-car radio net. He tells the driver what lies ahead and advises him of the distances to particular obstacles and points. If Damso was planning on making a charge, now would have to be the time. Meanwhile, Lourens's major competition was still coming from Fecken and Levkovitz in the A7 Polo Player. They'd begun the day only a second apart, and the trend was continuing. Fecken is still considered one of South Africa's hottest rallying prospects. Indeed, a driver to watch. And determined not to be ignored as top contenders were Rueda and Buerta in the distinctive yellow and white Mitsubishi Lancer four-wheel drive. Class A7 has traditionally been something of a Volkswagen benefit in recent years, but as Lourens was showing, Toyota was intent on changing all that. Meanwhile, near disaster was about to befall the Sasol Volkswagen team. Habich suffered tyre troubles and lost over a minute on the leaders, while Fecken, seen here on the Polo, had similar troubles of his own. Suddenly, things had changed again.
Ergen, just when things were looking good, you come out of the stage with two flat wheels. What happened there?
Yeah, it's about 1 kilometer into the stage. There's a 90 right with a slight rut in it, and I hit it sideways, and both the left-hand side wheels climbed off the rims. So we had a flat wheel for about 10 Ks. We lost a minute, 40 seconds on Etienne. So we're going to have to decide how to make that up.
Etienne, all of a sudden a slight reprieve for you, Ergen having lost a minute and 40 to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think he had a flat wheel. We suffered with a brake pipe, rear brake pipe, going on the last 3 Ks. So I lost a bit of time there. So fortunately, we didn't lose too much on the other guys. Yeah.
Well, you certainly got the class under control. Are you going to chase the leaders now?
No, I think we'll just keep our pace and then see what happens. I think the front guys will sort themselves out and maybe another puncher or two.
They're busy doing that because Yanni also had a flat wheel.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, look, it's a bit tricky out there. You know, you get sections where it's dry and then all of a sudden there's a wet patch. And I think there's those wet patches that catches the guys out. Yeah.
On now to Stage 12. Located near the small towns of Umzinto and Esperanzo, the long 30-kilometre section was to see even more drama unfolding. Habich and Judd in the Class A8 Golf were again in trouble with a flat tyre, allowing Damso to slip into third spot. Gemmel in the Subaru was still leading, with Kuhn in the Golf snapping at his heels. Have a look at Habich's damaged left front tyre as he rounds the corner, desperate to keep going until the end of the stage. And here's another view. Damso and Hodgson, though, appear to be having no such problems in the Corolla. For some of the front-runners, the chance to service at the end of the stage was welcome indeed.
And so your lead has somehow disappeared and now Gemmel's leading again.
Yeah, we're struggling to stay ahead of the four-wheel drives. Bit of a tyre gamble as well going on at the moment. You know, we're trying different tyres on the surface, and I see we came out of here with the tyres pressure on 2.5, which meant it went up 0.6 bars, showing that, you know, they did work a bit hard. But I think Gemmel's going to be the real challenge today. His car, because of the four-wheel drive, uses less tyres. So especially in a long stage, I think, you know, towards the end we're overheating the tyres, and then because he's pulling on all four, he's probably getting more mileage out per tyre.
And then further back in the stage, another sensation. Lawrence and Vermeulen, pushing so hard in their A7 Toyota for so long, had lost it into the unforgiving KwaZulu-Natal bush. This left Fecken and Levkovitz in the A7 Polo Player looking good. But barely minutes later, they were out too, victims of a broken side shaft. This handed Chart van der Walt the A7 lead, despite numerous problems. While most eyes were on the front, the back markers were engrossed in various class battles of their own. Dion Skuman was battling Nkosinati and Zimandi in Class A5, while track racer Gugu Zulu was making his rally debut.
You lost a bit of time yesterday, but you're still going. How's the day been?
It's been a very good day. We're getting better as the days progress, and since yesterday, I think we've managed to close up the gap slightly, but not much.
You haven't fallen off anywhere today?
Not today, and I'm not intending to.
We pick up the front runners again on stage 14. Here we're in car with Enzo Kuhn, who, believe it or not, was another Volkswagen entry battling with tyre problems. Look for the damage on the left rear. Back in car with Kuhn and Aris again. Listen for the damaged tyres slapping against the bodywork. By comparison, Gemmel in the Subaru and Damso in the Toyota were having a good, trouble-free run in stage 14. Almost against all odds, a relieved Enzo Kuhn finally crossed the flying finish at the end of the stage. Kuhn's misfortune saw Serge Damso speeding into second place, and suddenly overall victory was becoming a prospect again. Meanwhile, Kuhn was finishing the stage. Note that the tyre and most of the rim has disappeared completely. In car now with Johnny Gemmel, the event leader. Could he keep cool and trouble-free while those around him were losing time hand over fist? Gemmel gets only limited support from Subaru, while the likes of Kuhn, Damso and Habich are all well-paid factory drivers with a massive support structure. This makes Johnny's competitiveness all the more noteworthy. Here he and navigator Paisley finish the stage and clock in. The sensational events on stage 15 were to change the course of this event and make local rallying history. We joined Damso and Hodgson in the Corolla. Look out now for the smoke on the left-hand side of the windscreen as they go through the corner. Whoops! And they're off the road, smashing into Gemmel's Subaru Impreza, which had crashed in the same spot only minutes earlier.
Okay, watch the next car. Yes.
Put the board out there quickly.
Board.
Board!
Woo!
Yes. Why didn't you put the board out? Ah, this haze, man.
When the cars didn't emerge from the stage, everyone waited anxiously. Fernando Rueda was the first competitor through, and he brought the bad news.
It's quite a tricky right-hander, very tricky piece of road. And quite a tricky right-hander. Gemmel must have gone straight, parked it there, and then Serge must have come 2 minutes later and parked it in the same place. Because you could see both cars crumbled up and broken windows.
Broken they certainly were. Fortunately, the crews were unharmed, although they seem to be keeping a safe distance from each other.
Well, Cyril, the last time we spoke was the end of stage 12. It was exciting then, but now happenings that can only be described as absolutely sensational.
And you really can't keep up with this lot. Stage 12, Enzo was leading. Gemmell was second. Serge was third. Come stage 15, at the start of 15, Gemmell is leading by a few seconds from Serge, and Enzo all of a sudden third place, having lost time in the previous stages. Then in stage 15 itself, Gemmell goes off the road, half rolls the car, falls on its side, they get the car back. Serge, 2 minutes later, goes off on the same corner, falls on top of the car, and the guys in first and second place are gone. So Enzo finds himself in the lead. Albig has been elevated to second place. Fernando Ruido is now in third. Overnight, everything changed. Or in a matter of seconds, everything changed. I can't remember in all my years in rallying where the two lead cars fell out in the same stage, let alone in the same corner, and let alone crash into each other.
Yeah, Cyril, it's unfortunate. I mean, you don't wish anybody an accident like Serge just had, crashing into Johnny Gemmell, and I feel sorry for both crews, and I hope that they're all right. But we're certainly tasting a possible win at the moment.
And all this happened whilst you were having troubles of your own, two flat wheels in two stages.
I just kept having the flat wheels and pulling my hair out, and was worried about what that was doing to my position. And they took each other out, so powers to be worked there.
Yanni, you had quite a bad day, but obviously some other people have had worse days.
Yeah, you know, our day didn't start off too well, and we had 2 punches, lost more than 3.5 minutes in total on stage time, so there wasn't much that we could do in our position and except wait for the other guys, and yeah, they've helped us, so we're back to second, which is not bad, I think, under the circumstances.
Yeah, what turned out to be a bad day was actually turning out to be a good day. In relation to this morning, it's actually a brilliant day.
It is, actually. Yeah, no, you know, these things happen, and, you know, I think second overall is pretty good, and, yeah, we're happy with the result.
Fernando, you had a fairly uneventful day, steady drive all the way through. All of a sudden, you find yourself on the podium.
Yeah, you're right, Cyril. It's, you know, after last year, what we tried to do is try and keep it steady. I didn't want a repeat of what happened last year, and we've been very lucky. You know, it's been a steady drive. We didn't try any heroics, and we're here.
And if you can finish where you are, it's also going to be your best national championship position ever.
Yeah, well, last year we finished third overall in Cape Town as well, but it'll be the best position in Group N. We'll win Group N for the first time, which will be lovely.
Fantastic job. Just make sure you get to the finish now, eh?
I know, thank you.
No tricks.
No, not yet, not yet. We'll try. Maybe 1 or 2, just to show you. Thank you.
As the end of the rally approached, it was obvious that the Day 2 attrition rate had been high. Even among the backmarkers like these competitors, it had been a case of survival of the fittest, or the luckiest. For teams like Peter Teague and Donovan Brown and their A6 Polo player, it must have been heartening to find that the locals had stayed to cheer them on too, and not just the front runners. Also getting the royal treatment from the spectators were Costa K and John Costa in their Class S20 Toyota. Look at the rough gravel surface here, and it's easy to see why tyre problems were so abundant. Still going strong, and eventually to finish 23rd overall, was the all-women team of Lola and Megan Verlark in their Hyundai Elantra. On board now with Kuhn and Aris in the A8 Golf as they head for the end of the final stage. Come on, guys, you can smile now. You've won.
Cyril, the end of the event, we're back at the Gateway Shopping Centre. I think if all of the rallies this season are this close and this exciting, we'll be very happy people.
It's certainly one of the best events we've had in the past 15, 20 years. 4 guys dicing from the lead from the start, and I think Enzo turned out to be a very deserved winner. You know, he was right, mixing it from the word go, very quick in the mud, quick later on. There was a bit of a controversy about the first stage, but, you know, it was a bit of a Mickey Mouse stage to start with anyway. And then Johnny Gemmell carried on where he left off last year, leading right until they had the accident. Serge is back with a vengeance. Bad luck for him too. You know, certainly the Toyota was performing very well. And Jannie Abig in the mix. There was nobody to choose from until probably the second last or third last stage. So I think, yes, you're right. It's probably going to be a fantastic year. Lower down as well. A7, fantastic dice between Ergen and Etienne. Chart left out a bit. At the end of the day, he won the class. And even lower down the field, A5 was very competitive. A6 was a bit of a Toyota benefit. JP led from the start. But overall, I think excellent rally. Very good for the sport, good for rallying. And looking forward to the rest of the year, yes.
As Kuhn mounts the winner's podium, here's confirmation of the final results. Habig and Judd second, Rueda and Buerta third, Van der Walt and Burrows fourth, JP Damso and Hooper fifth. At proving just how tough the rally was, the remaining 5 coming from the lower classes.
Enzo, at last your bad luck streak has been broken, and it couldn't have been in a better way.
Brilliant, yeah. Start of the season, new navigator and a new year, and it's a good way to start off and a good way to know that luck's with me this year.
The car performed well all the way through. You had a few flat wheels, but otherwise okay.
Yeah, no, it's the car's strong, I must say. You know, the pace was so hot that we really had to push the machinery very hard, and hence all of us were having flat wheels. You know, it's really a sign of the pace of the event, and hanging out the tail off the road and just the front wheels scrabbling for grip. You know, that's what it was all about, this event. But I'm glad to be here, and it's brilliant to have an engine that lasted the way, and that I could thrash all the way and it didn't blow up.
Yeah, obviously, new driver, new team, new everything, and racing for the lead from day one, so you obviously had to do something right.
Yeah, well, I think I did a pretty competent job. It's good to be back. We couldn't have asked for a better result on the first event. It's a good way to start the year off, get some points in the bag. So, yeah, things are looking good.
Getting points in the bag, it's early in the season, but it's never too early to start thinking championship, eh?
I think it's a bit too early. I mean, we've just finished the first event, and as you know yourself, I mean, there's still plenty more events to come. So it's far too early to start thinking about that. I think the important thing is just to consolidate at the beginning of the year and score as many finishes and as many points as possible.
Well done, guys. Excellent performance, and we hope many more.
Thanks, Ben.
So, an interesting and dramatic opening to the 2002 Rally Championship season. For the Volkswagen team, its sheer strength in depth meant that while those around them were falling off, it was able to keep going and ultimately gain the lion's share of the honours. But of course you have to remember that the rally season isn't a sprint. Rather, it's a long, hard, grueling marathon. And much can still happen. We'll be with you again in a month when we go to the Western Cape for round 2 of the South African Rally Championship.